All right, everybody, welcome back to the Realennials. I'm Pat.
I'm Ruby.
And we're joined with a special guest today, Nico Wiggins, local educator and creative here
Yo.
in Kansas City. Welcome to the show.
Yeah,
Hey,
thanks
Pasta.
for being here.
What's happening?
What's going on, Nico?
Oh, man.
Good morning. Hey.
Living my best life. I love the mornings.
I
I love the mornings. Yeah, it's a fresh start. It's a reminder that life is a fresh. It's a reminder. It's a reminder that life is a fresh start every day.
Yeah, just push the mic back just a little bit.
Push it
like
back.
2 inches. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, great morning to be alive. It's actually a beautiful morning outside, a little chilly. It's supposed to get up to 50. You know?
What's the first thing you guys do in the morning when you wake up?
Oh, man.
Meditate.
Really? Every morning?
Well, recently, yes.
Trying
I wish
to.
I could say I've been doing it longer, but
Right.
like it's the best. You just throw on a little meditation, and I just stay in bed and meditate, and then I can get up.
Yeah, I have a back and forth with my dog every morning about like, go to the bathroom. He doesn't want to. It's like, I gotta leave, but hurry up, go. And then he just like waits outside the door forever, and then I have to go outside and stand with him. And
It's a love-hate
It's
relationship.
like your child.
yeah, so
Hold his hand.
then when that's done, I get ready. I check my emails and
You check
figure
your
out what I
emails in
gotta
the
do.
morning?
Yeah, every day.
What? Do you?
Yeah, not first thing.
Yeah, I
But-
don't either.
Yeah, I'm
actively
working on my
avoid it.
routine. It changes a lot. It changes. The most consistent one is when there was like a period of time for about a year where I was meditating consistently or attempting to. Breathing was what I
Oh.
chose to focus on because the idea of meditating was too much. So I just let me do what the basics say and focus on breathing. But I was reading a lot. I was reading for probably an hour and a half, 2 hours every morning. And
Yeah.
I had
that
a
would
job
be
where
so
I
nice.
didn't start till about 10. So
I don't think I can meditate. I mean, I feel like I've tried, and I just, it's just not for me.
it's just not for you. We'll
Yeah,
keep trying.
it's-
We'll work on some
Yeah.
stuff.
Is it breathing? Is it focusing on breathing, or is
They say the first step is to focus on breathing in
Yeah.
through your nose, out through your mouth.
It's the easiest thing because you
Okay.
kind of like get into you have to be present when
Yeah.
you're noticing your
Just
body.
focus on it, and keep. It says like you'll drift off, but then you just come back. Be expectant of the drift because I think people get too frustrated of the drift and they're like, oh, I can't do this, instead of just saying, oh, my mind's gonna drift. Slowly bring it back.
For me, meditating feels like the mental version of procrastination. It's like I have a
Never heard
million.
that
I've never
before.
heard of that, but that also kind of made sense.
It's like a million. I have a million things I have to like think about and figure out in my mind every day. And if I'm forcing myself to not think about them, I feel like I'm pushing them off.
Oh, you need to meditate.
Yeah, maybe even more. I think we actually need to shut this down and start doing
Yeah.
meditation.
All right, cut the
True.
cameras. No, I'm just
Actually,
kidding.
I did suggest that. I said we should start off the day with a little 5-minute, 10-minute meditation before we get going.
Yeah.
Meditating's hard.
Because
man.
you should only also, I think, on the in that same vein of meditation, they say you shouldn't try to do more than 3 things in a day. And I think that one of the main points of meditation is to help you kind of align and prioritize what are the things that are actually going to move my life forward today versus what are the things I'm telling myself I need to do that just keep you busy.
Well, who says only do 3 things in a day? Because it sounds like that person isn't getting a lot done.
Hey, Benjamin Franklin said that. So
right. Actually, no. I don't know. Schools of thought, to each its own.
Yeah, meditation. So, what's up? Where are you from?
yes, I want to talk about meditation.
Leave it
Pat
up.
needs to meditate.
Leave me
That's what we're
alone.
gonna say.
The Kansas City area. I was born in Jacksonville, Florida, but only lived there for a very short amount of time.
Jack.
Yeah. And
Is that what it's called? I don't know. I just made that
I
up.
wasn't there that long. Yeah, I vibed with you though. Yeah. Moved to Kansas City. Grew up in Independence. My mother got remarried. Moved to Olathe. So yeah, both sides of the state line.
Okay.
Kansas City.
You're a multi-state kid.
Yeah. I don't really. One of the things I'm working with to reconcile is I don't really consider any place home. I consider Kansas City as a city relatively home, but at no point in Kansas City, anywhere in Kansas City, do I feel like okay, I'm home here. Just more so, the city is familiar enough to me that I call it home.
Yeah, I feel that way about Kansas City too. I don't generally feel the need to specify that I'm from KCK, except for obviously when you're describing 2 people in Kansas City where you live.
Right.
But Kansas City's so small and familiar that it's not the same as Chicago, where you might have to specify where you're from.
Like the area.
Where'd you go to school?
I graduated high school from Olathe North.
Okay.
Yeah, really
And
good experience.
college?
K-State.
Okay.
Yeah.
Master's degree in education, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Master's degree in education with an emphasis in post-secondary access and persistence for low-income students.
Oh, damn.
So my
That's very
graduate
specific.
degree, it was super specific. My graduate degree was focused on why essentially do minority and or low-income students have a harder time getting into college and graduating. For low-income minority students, we sit around and we go, duh, and we can name all the reasons, you know, but old white people have no idea even in 2018, so.
That's interesting, just from my perspective. I'm not familiar at all with K-State, but it seems like why did you choose K-State and study that?
My older brother went to K-State.
Okay.
Yeah. And at the time, so I remember I was a senior in high school. They said you can take this English class, it'll prepare you for college. You can take this English class if you're just trying to graduate and get out of here. I said, sign me up for that English class because I'm trying to go. And
Nice.
when when the time came, you know, everyone's going to college. They got the little banners and things. I'm like, oh, I need to go to college. And my mom was like, the only way you're going to college is if you live with your brother. So I dormed. My brother was the RA of the floor.
My gosh, nice.
and I dormed with him. So
That's cool.
I was on strict shutdown my freshman year, but it was really good.
Early.
We got my undergraduate degree in business communications, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
You did research, right? You did like extensive research for your master's, didn't you?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
Tell us about your research that you did.
Enough to start a program. So the name of to bring a program to K-State. So the name of the program is entitled Call Me Mister. It's an African American male teacher education scholarship program. So it started in Clemson in South Carolina, administered through Clemson, housed at 4 local HBCUs to recruit black men into the teaching force. The total teacher population, less than 2% of them are black males.
Wow.
And so a lot of my research was based on recruiting black men to become teachers, why ethically and financially that was possible. And eventually I left because morally it wasn't, I wasn't aligned with the work anymore, which is why I ended up leaving. But so my work was focused on recruiting them and then reducing barriers so they could graduate. But then more so, I toured a lot of schools in the state the 2 years I was in that program to understand the climate for which black men should go into public education.
Ooh, I'm interested to hear what you didn't align with ethically.
That's a long conversation for another day, but you know, white America, it is what it is. You got to learn to you have to learn to pick your battles, and you have to learn to be intentional about how you expense your own energy, because you can burn your whole life up trying to fight the system that we're born into.
Yeah.
And you might make progress for you or your life or your family, but did you enjoy it along the way? You know, I who was it? There was someone I was talking to one time. He essentially summed it up by saying hard work should still be joyful. You know?
I agree.
Yeah,
I
that's
agree
a struggle that I
wholeheartedly.
have quite a bit is in my life is figuring out a way to make a difference, but also enjoy my life.
Yeah.
You know, and make my life enjoyable. I genuinely believe life is short, and my biggest fear in life is not fulfilling my potential. So, that being said, we've talked on many of occasions about like systemic oppression and all these things that affect us negatively towards something as simple as fulfilling my potential. But yeah, I struggle back and forth, and I have my whole life about like how involved do I want to be in my community? How much energy do I want to put out there to make the world a better place versus being selfish and knowing that my life is short and wanting to experience that in my life.
Yeah.
I think the fulfillment comes from like figuring that out, wading through that, and then getting past it, and then you're finally at a point where you're like, okay, I'm happy helping people, I'm happy doing this. And I think you're there, actually. You're like, I'm really proud of you, Pat, actually, now that we're on air, I can say that. I'm really proud of Pat for like getting through that, because you're really happy, and we're actually all doing really meaningful work. I'm really happy for all of us.
Yeah, I love the fact that all of us love what we do, and we love doing this, to where there's a give and take relationship there, but none of it is frustrating. You know what I mean?
No.
Like when I'm at I'm fully employed, you know, salary the whole nine. When I'm in that situation, I'm happy. I'm not like, oh, I want to do this or that. But as soon as that ends, put on a different hat, switch modes, get to work.
Yeah, I feel the same way. So what was your journey after college? How did you end up? I
was homeless for a little bit.
Oh, man.
Did I ever tell you guys this?
No.
I don't think I've heard this.
I was building a youth agency. The name of the youth agency was RISE. RISE stands for Relentlessly, Intensely Superseding Expectations.
Nice.
So Pat, Rob, myself, some other buddies, we started building this. And the way that it started was I was visiting a 5th grade classroom, Miss Motley's 5th grade classroom, for a undergrad assignment, and I just kept going back, and then started talking to the principal, and that led to doing something for MLK Day, which led to working with a couple of schools, and so we decided to file and work towards getting a fiscal sponsor for a 501c3, and like 2 years later, we had national partnerships with like Boys and Girls Club and Job Corps, and yeah, but I was doing all this while I was homeless, because obviously building a youth agency doesn't pay the bills.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I was homeless doing all this. No one really knew.
You were just like staying at people's places.
Yeah, I was either
or
crashing in my car, or staying at
man.
good friends' houses, or just roughing it, you know.
Were you here in KC at that time?
No, this was in Manhattan.
Okay,
Yeah, this
wow.
was in Manhattan. But we had an advisory board. Two of them were deans at the university, who recruited me back to grad school.
Okay, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
it was like at this point where it was a tough breaking point. If I left the agency, like I felt like it was at a point where if I gave another like really good concerted effort, I could make it sustainable, or I could go into a bigger system and work my way through it. And
like go get your master's degree, go figure that out.
yeah.
And it sounds like you made the right move, right?
I'm
You
happy.
got a lot of
I'm
inspiration
super
there.
happy with how things played out. My experience is going back to K-State, working for the university for a couple of years. Amazing. I got to do some really, really cool things. Served on the Presidential Search Committee board.
Nice.
There was 20 people selected to help pick our next president.
Wow.
When our president gave us 2 weeks notice, he was like, "I'm out, guys. You got 14 days to figure this out." So we had an interim, General Myers, who is now still our current president. But then we went on search for a president, and that experience was
Probably hectic.
pretty incredible, man. You learn a lot.
How did you what criteria were you looking for personally when being part of that board?
Me personally, me personally, I was there to represent graduate students. I believe was kind of the niche in which the thing I was to focus on. So did this individual have a keen understanding as to what it takes for graduate students to be successful, but also inevitably for underrepresented students? Did they have a keen understanding? So those were really two big things I focused on.
Do you think that the new president fulfills that?
General Myers, I think that he is he's incredible. He's sharp. I mean, past chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So he, you guys familiar with Joint Chiefs of Staff?
Yeah.
So there's the branches of the military.
Yeah.
Those are all the chiefs of staff. So the top dog of the Marines is the chief of staff. Yada. The Joint Chief of Staff is when those 5 individuals get together.
Oh, wow,
And the
okay.
chairman of those reports directly to the president over the entire military. And he was one of our past chairmen of Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's
Yeah.
in the military world. He wasn't no joke.
At all.
No,
So how'd you end up back in KC?
I quit my job.
Yeah.
Yeah, wasn't for me.
Did you know what you wanted to do when you got back here, or you just moved back and this was home?
Yeah, I
and you
knew
were gonna figure
exactly
it
what I
out?
wanted to do. Yeah, so we were recruiting. So I told you my work was recruiting underrepresented students, most of the time black men, because of my role, and a lot of them came from Wyandotte County. And we graduate at the time when I left, we were graduating less than 24% of our black males. And so I wanted to come to Wyandotte County to see it, at the bare minimum, why are students making the decision to go to college, to go to K-State, and who and what is informing their decisions. And I now work in Wyandotte County, and I realize there's a lot going on.
Yeah, there's so much going on.
There's so much going
From day
on.
one, I mean, things that are even before kids are born factor
So
into
much going on, man.
if they go to college and where.
So much going on, yeah. But since getting back, so much has changed. My work has really spilled over into a lot of things. But education is the core of education as a system, and education as liberation, education as a tool for advancing humans in society. And Horace Mann, labeled one of the great educators of our time, he was born in the late 1700s, established I think it was the second ever Board of Education in the state of Massachusetts. And he was the one who said education should be a civil right, should be advance society. Like the moral compass of a society should be its education. This was in like the 1850s.
Yeah.
And I really believe that it has the ability to do that if done correctly.
All right.
I agree.
Well, thanks again for joining us, everybody. We're here with Nico Wiggins, local creator and educator. So we will be right back after this break.
Welcome back, everyone. You're here with the Realennials. I'm Ruby.
I'm Pat.
And we're joined by Nico Wiggins. And we're going to get right into it. We want to talk about education.
Yo.
What are your thoughts on education? I mean, people, like we were just talking during the break about Betsy DeVos.
That's how much of an impact she's made on our local communities.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you, like, what are your thoughts on her?
I have no idea.
She's a Secretary of Education.
I believe she's our current secretary, but I know nothing about her.
So that is to say that she does not have that much of a direct impact on local education?
She probably does, but I don't think she has much of an impact as we make it out to seem. I think news and media tends to be national in nature because most of it is being conglomerated, moved to the top, which means most news still happens out of New York City, and New York covers world news. And so we tend to see news as national news and think that the things happening national are the only things that impact us locally, but that's not true. We're impacted more locally than anything. I think neighborhood communities are still the most impactful thing for humans, for life, is like your neighborhood community, like who lives within a 4-block radius of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how well do you all operate as a community and as a unit for health, for your health services, for your educational services, for your transportation services? How much do you advocate for the needs of your community? All of those things.
Why do you think so much of what you're talking about right there is lost, is not prevalent in today's society? At least in the city. Do you think it is? Do
you think it's lost?
I feel like it is. I feel like people aren't that connected to their neighbors and to their community. Maybe I'm out of the loop because, like, I don't go to church and I don't have kids, so I'm not really interacting with my neighbors.
Those are big driving forces.
Those are big driving forces. That's
for sure.
true.
For sure.
You know your neighbors.
I know. Yeah, I know my next door neighbors, but I don't really know the people.
Yeah.
I don't even know the people like on the other side.
Until you've had to search for a babysitter, you probably won't know your neighbors. You're like, are any of them not
Will
crazy?
You watch my kids?
Can I find out if any of my neighbors are not crazy so they can watch my kids?
The one neighbor that I know is nosy. So he comes up to me and talks to me about everything. I'm just like, okay.
He's like, oh, what do you have in your garage there, Pat? What's going on?
But to answer your question, man, to the extent that I would agree with that, because I think that it's all perspective. Everything is perspective. I think that I'm fortunate enough at the same time to see people who come together as community who celebrate life. Most of it is through education, though. It is through families. It is through things like that. But I think that a friend of mine put it pretty well. He said, we're losing our ability to empathize with each other. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's... he denotes to desensitization of violence.
I was about to say something along those lines. I would say desensitization of almost everything.
Yeah.
Given the fact that we're so over inundated by things online.
Yeah, they're at our fingertips.
I mean, there's like cry porn, quote unquote cry porn, where people watch like when people come home from the military and they meet their dog again, and like, or like, like kids can like hear that we're deaf, and so they like
binge on that stuff.
Yeah, and they over binge on emotional content that doesn't really affect them in real life, but I think it wires the brain in a weird way to where they have issues dealing with things like that in real life, particularly in interpersonal relationships. Yeah,
interpersonal, the older you get, is the joke of it, like my mom and parents and people always say is like it's hard to make friends when you're older. But the reality, like the tougher thing is, like if you did not develop interpersonal skills growing up, nothing's gonna magically appear when you're 29.
Yeah, you gotta work on it.
Oh my gosh, it's a lot of work. Yeah.
Going back to the Betsy DeVos thing, I wanted to bring
He's not letting. I know nothing about Betsy DeVos. But
the few things I heard about her, and this is gonna be a hot take a little bit because she, from my understanding, and I have almost none research
but from
done.
The little you have,
the little that I read in the news and stuff about what her plans were to kind of like deregulate education a little bit and allow for more specialization of schools and charter schools and things like that, which I'm not necessarily opposed. I mean, I think that the overarching school philosophy nationally doesn't work, and I think that we see that in public schools. And I've personally worked as a substitute teacher in a charter school that was more specialized. They were able to develop their own criteria, and they had a very high success rate, particularly of minority students. And so I've seen with my own eyes what being allowed.
How was that school funded?
I honestly couldn't tell you. It's here. It's a local GCI, Guadalupe Centers Inc.
Nice.
Their charter school system.
Yeah, our school. I wish I knew the number. I think it's 80% of our schools operates on tax dollars.
Yeah, I would imagine that.
So that's what she's saying. She's saying taking out. My understanding of what you're saying too is taking away those, at least the federal tax dollars, and if urban public education lost our school would not open if we didn't have federal tax dollars. So the schools there's schools in this city that could go without federal tax dollars and you wouldn't even notice that they lost the money.
Right. Well, and like I said, it's a bit of a hot take because there's going to be good and bad with that. I think what they were trying to do, and don't quote me, but I think what they were trying to do was take away.
I don't on video, yeah.
Maybe take away. I don't know if that's the right phrase, but reallocate funds to schools that are more deserving that earn it. Essentially, if you're if you were to create a charter school system and you did have a high percentage of graduate, then you would earn more money, essentially as a school.
I see.
So then it's forcing schools and forcing educators and forcing people to really be on top of the education game rather than just public school teachers that just show up and are not caring. So
maybe I'd have to look into that more, but I could see the philosophy.
Yeah. And so, I mean, like I said, it's a bit of a hot take. People don't really look into it that much. They just see her as someone that's never been in education and what the hell, Donald Trump? Why would you do that to us? And people already feel a certain way about Donald Trump anyway, so... Yeah.
It almost sounds like that makes school less accessible, which is, I think, what we should be doing is making it more accessible.
That's the argument against it, for sure. Because then it's basically rewarding people with money, because people with money fundamentally are more likely to be more literate at a younger age, be more successful in school throughout their school life. And it's basically playing that up, and they're saying that it would just drive that even further. That the gap between illiterate, poverty people and people that already are wealthy. Anyways, that's just a thought. I didn't know what you thought about that. If you had any thoughts.
No, man, it is what it is. You contribute what you can.
I do have a question. What do you think is going right in the education system right now? What could you applaud the education system maybe here locally?
Yeah, my building administrators are all phenomenal. They all work really hard especially our school principal, and we have 3 other administrators in the building. Hope I got that right. Hope it's not 4. Yeah, I think it's 3. That work really hard to understand the system, understand that they are an urban school in a system, but to be relevant to our students. It's tough. It's really tough, but they work really hard to try to do it, And so I think it's the individual effort of people. My school principal has allowed me to do things that I think otherwise I wouldn't be able to do, you know. So she's really looked at me and said, okay, you know what you're doing more than I can tell you how to do what you're doing. I trust that you can do it. And she's given me that autonomy to do some things that are a little outside of the lines. And so I think administrators who trust that there are people who know more than them and use their power for good, I think are doing education a real service. So I'd say because I go to that school every day, every single day I show up at that school, and so I see that concerted effort every day.
That's good to know that there's good people in education, because I think sometimes we get a little jaded talking about the system and how bad it is and how we want to change it. But, there's good people out there working for this to move it along.
Yeah, I would say it's predominantly good people.
Yeah,
I mean, people don't go into education for money, right? I mean, so you really have to want to do that.
But there is a lot of ignorant MFers in education.
Oh, okay.
A bunch, especially in urban schools.
Yeah.
Why are they there? What are their motives?
This is just based on my research, a couple of years working now locally here in urban education. The part of it is turnover so high that it's easy to get a job in urban education. So if you just got your degree and you just left college and you need to go work at a school, you end up at an urban school, and you're like, let me do my 3 years so I can get out of here. So there's those teachers. So there's a lot of turnover in urban schools. There's a savior mentality, which might be worse than I got stuck at the urban school.
Yeah,
the savior mentality is like, and I've literally heard these words come out of people's mouths, is that I came here to help you kids and save you kids and put you on a better path, and it's like, nah, that's not how this is gonna work,
Those seem like good intentions.
So there's those, but that's just, there's so much ignorance embedded in this. So
what is the ignorant part about that? The intention, or is it that they're
most
not
of the people who say that? Most of the
that?
people who say that have never spent any amount of time in an urban environment.
So they don't know what they're dealing with. They just assume
they
that
think they've had a more privileged, better life, so they're going to go to an urban environment and tell the kids how to be better Americans and how to live in a better democracy and how to do it and how to play by the rules, because if you play by the rules, life works out. And it's like, no, life worked out for you.
And they're discounting the reality.
It was designed if you played by the rules. I play by the rules every day, and not every day, but I still catch the back end of America. This is America. What do we, So I every single day when I go into the school, I teach them how to play the game. I say, good, bad, or indifferent. You can hate me, you can love me, but I'm going to teach you how to play the game. And from there, it's up to you to decide: do you want to play the game? Do you want to rebel? I'm not gonna, because they already know it's broken. They know it's a facade. They know it's stupid. They know they've been studying the same stupid science stuff since the 7th grade. They're now seniors. They're like, yo, I'm just trying to get out of here.
Yeah.
And so if we tell them, no, this science will pay off in your life, dude, they ain't hearing all that.
Not in the same way that they used to. Like, you get a high school diploma, you can go get a nice job, buy a house, go to college on a part-time salary and stuff. But I think
decades ago,
it's more important to maybe encourage kids now to figure out what they really like. You know what I'm saying? Like, give them that guidance.
I would say figure out, and Steve Harvey talks a lot about this, figure out, like, what can you do to earn an income? And
whatever that may be. Yeah,
and I used to believe that you should focus on what you love to do, and that will make money for you, and I still do. But you should first focus on how can you create a sustainable living for yourself, and then on the back of that sustainable living. And I think that the challenge with high school today is it doesn't teach young adults how to live on their own, how to be sustainable. It doesn't teach about taxes, about finance, about economics. It doesn't.
Or even their options after high school. Like, I didn't realize that film school would be an option. Like, I probably would have went to film school if I had the option, but I went to a liberal arts university. And I just letting people know that they could go take a 1-year vocational degree and make just as much money as somebody that went for 4 years, somewhere. But people don't know their options. Yeah. And
vocational school is still an extremely viable option. Extremely viable. Unfortunately, it's got like the stigma of like, oh, you didn't make it in life. But those kids turn around making more money than the kid who got drunk at college every night and
Well, and some people like to work with their hands. Some people like to be more technical and, you know, kind of figure out systems. And we should be encouraging them to go into that, not as like a second route after, you know, a liberal degree or something.
And with the idea of Realennials, of like, to us, our group is like, it's not too late. A lot of us think like, oh, I missed the opportunity to set my life on a different track. It's like, no, especially if you're in your 20s, early 30s, if you like, you could change your entire life today. And 4 years from now, you'll probably be where you wanted to be or down that path. And we tend to think like it's too late, but.
Yeah. In my case in particular, I went to college for economics. I got a job working in an office in finance, and throughout that whole time, I was competing against my creative spirit to try to find something and I felt obligated to do that because I didn't come from money and I didn't come from a family that was successful financially. So I felt like, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to break the mold. I'm going to go to college, work in finance, and make a bunch of money. But despite that, I had to reconcile with my soul that I'm a creative. And it was until my late 20s when I was able to figure out how to make that work in my life. And
what was the hardest thing you had to push back against to leave that job? And
just being afraid that I was at a pivotal time in that career where it was like make or break. Like I needed to either get a promotion or pivot to another company to get a raise, basically, and raise that income and follow that career path. Or I just knew, as I alluded to earlier, that life is short. So it's like I felt there came a day when I felt like I couldn't waste another day not doing the things that I love and not giving the energy towards that. Yeah. And I knew that I would never get that and feel that way about that career path.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I think what's broken about the education system is that they don't tell us that, like you said, about like you didn't know about going to film school.
I would have done
and
that.
It's just this archaic system that's designed to produce, you know, worker bees, basically. And so much of society is getting away from that due to, you know, revolution of technology and AI and automation. And the schools are just left behind, basically, and in this old world, and this criteria from the 1800s.
Yeah.
Anyways, we'll get back to that when we come back after the break.
All right, thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, and on that note.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We're the Realennials here with Nico Wiggins. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Pat.
I'm Ruby.
And we have a question for you, Nico.
Oh, yeah, we have a question. We have this book of questions.
Let's do it.
Okay, where would you choose to be if you could place yourself anywhere on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is hardship, struggle, and extraordinary accomplishment, and 10 is comfort, peace of mind, and no accomplishment? Wait, what? I didn't read this right. But
Comfort, peace of mind, and no accomplishment.
10 is 1 is hardship, struggle, and extraordinary accomplishment. So those are the 3. And then 10 is comfort, peace of mind, but no accomplishment. So why on your choice, and then where are you now?
I would say more towards 1, because I get really like paranoid when I'm not being productive. I have bad anxiety, and my anxiety kicks in really bad when I'm not being productive.
What does productive mean for you?
I think like Pat said, like there's so many things that I have, like why you said meditation is hard to do. For me, it's like I can take the time to be still and do that, but then the rest of my day needs to be productive. And to me, that really looks like making progress on the things that I keep telling myself matter. So we go through our entire day saying, oh, this matters, that matters, this matters. But sometimes like we get so caught up in other things that we never actually make progress on those things. So, and those are the things that I put my most hard work into. So I would say more on that side, because I've never been the type that like sought comfort. Comfort for me comes as a byproduct of living a meaningful, productive life. Yeah.
You seem like a mover, like you like to be always doing stuff.
Although I don't want to ever get too, and this is like the thing I've been more consciously working on, and that's a big goal for 2019, is not to, I think the most simplest idea is Well, comparison is the thief of joy, but the idea that like we look at other people's lives, especially on social media, or FOMO, that's what one of my students called it, FOMO, is to not to, it's not real, it's not real. 7 billion people on this planet. Of course, life is happening. Of course, people are celebrating. Of course, and also social media only shows you the best of people's lives. But of course, like life is happening. Like so, taking the time to consistently say like, what life do I want to be living, and attract that energy and pull that energy. And yeah, that was a tangent, but
yeah, so that's the interesting thing about social media and people feeling like they get some sense of completion or satisfaction from other people's joy on social media. I mean, people that travel and have awesome Instagrams and things like that. I mean, I know wealthy people that do travel and have all those cinematic stuff, and 95% of their time they're just on their phone like everybody else. Yeah, scrolling through Instagram. They don't have any more or less genuine happiness because they have an awesome Instagram account.
Right. Meaningful relationships. All 2019, meaningful relationships.
I agree with that.
People who bring value to my life, whom I can bring value to their life. Yeah. I hope technology will like curb out and like. I hope it will. I think it's still so new that we're like completely fantasized by it. But I have faith in humanity that will slow down and we'll be like, yo.
You think so?
I hope. I have. What's the other side of the coin?
He said he has faith in it. Okay.
I have faith. What's the other side of the coin?
We can talk through it though.
Pat. I feel like it's more. I think it's converging. I think people are becoming more and more aligned with technology.
I don't disagree. I just say I have faith in humanity.
I think there's a threshold that we've passed with technology that we're not going to go.
Oh no, we can't go without it now. But I think that we can. No. What?
We need it.
If the Wi-Fi shut down, let alone the whole internet, people would lose their mind.
And how do we cope with that? How does humanity cope with that? I mean, is it going to be possible to have happiness? With technology, being so integrated with technology, has there ever really been happiness? I mean, before our generation and before the Generation X, as we know from watching Master of None, and having immigrant parents and stuff like that.
Both of your parents are immigrants?
Not mine. I'm referring to Ruby. I'm third generation American, but even then, even Americans before probably our parents' generation, there was no such thing as fun.
Right? You just work.
Work.
You work
and sleep.
You work and you earn a living and you provide for a family.
There was no Toys R Us. They played outside with a stick.
I've never been inside a Toys R Us.
Whenever the hula hoop was invented, that was like a great,
revolutionary
the best thing for kids for like 50 years.
Revolutionary.
And so, like, has there ever been such thing as genuine happiness? For so much of human history, it's been just struggle and turmoil and just trying not to die, Was like living to 30, was that happiness?
I don't think you can systematize happiness.
No.
So.
And there's duality too. You have to have, you struggle and happy, like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's negative and positive. Like you have to have struggle to get to the happiness, even if it's in pockets. Like we said, everything is temporary. So you're going to be in struggle temporarily and then you'll get to some happiness and then you're going to struggle again. Like it's just a fact of life.
Yeah.
It's a cycle.
That is one of the things that I wish we taught more of in school, is that if you're doing the right thing, it's like there's a difference between like, oh, you're going to struggle on this math test, but that's good because you're learning, versus if you're pursuing a meaningful life, difficult things will happen to you. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean it's bad. That just means the yin and the yang, the good comes with the bad. So if you're pursuing, if life is difficult in a meaningful way, you're often going in the right direction. But like we teach kids to only be good, to stay away from bad, to not do anything that, and so if they feel that, they sense that like, oh, this must be bad. But like all of the best things in my life have come from challenges. Yeah. From what could have been seen as bad, but rather it's like the thing you want is on the other side of this challenge. And persistence, I think, brings happiness.
I agree with that. Persistence and just pursuing those things, even if they're scary, right? Like being out of your comfort zone always brings a good result. Like I don't care, maybe you break your leg, but you learn not to do it again. Like you get something out of it.
And if it's super meaningful to you.
Yes.
If it's meaningful to you, it doesn't have to be meaningful to everybody else as long as it's meaningful to you. Now, to some extent, you have to figure out, okay, do I want to make this sustainable? Do I want to make this integrated into my life or my society or my job? Yeah, then you have to take that steps. But first, ask yourself, is it meaningful to you? If it's not, find a way to stop doing it.
I think that's something we need to start teaching kids too, is to ask those questions. If this is meaningful to me, or is this meaningful because my
Someone
parents,
else prescribed it to
somebody
me.
else prescribed it to me. And
Right.
it's taken me 30 some years to figure that out, you know? And I'm finally at the point where over the past few years, it's just like really questioning. And that's something we really push to our audience, our listeners, is like critically think about where you're getting your ideas from. If
Right.
it's your idea and you came to it because you had an experience, and then, you know, nobody can say anything to you about it. But if it's an idea that was given to you by your parents, your friends, the system, and it doesn't align with you, I think you should be able to shed that away and figure out what you do align with.
Yeah.
And we don't tell kids that. We don't tell people growing up that.
Well, and I think that is the intersection of where we struggle to cope as millennials, because we're trying to figure out what is meaningful to us, given the circumstances of our connection to technology and the internet, and how that all fits into what our personal passions are and what we're capable of doing, and just disassociating from like the ways of the past. You know,
We're the last generation that can say that. Like we say it all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
We're
It's
the bridge
weird.
generation.
Yeah, it's super weird. It's super weird how it all is happening. That we just so happen to be the oldest generation that can remember a time without technology.
yeah.
No other. We'll be
We're
the
it.
oldest. Yeah, we're it. No, everyone younger than us, our generation, which.
The
If
later
you're
half
under
of it.
20, if you're under 20 for sure, even if you're in your early 20s.
Yeah.
But if you're under 20, you can't even fathom. You're like, what? You didn't have Google. You didn't have what? You didn't have.
Corded phones. And
Yeah. So we have the last
Dial-up.
drop. Our generation has the last drop of empathy this society will ever feel.
Yeah, it's
That's
just
why
such
it's
a unique
important.
position. Yeah, because we had to grow up with, because now we can go and raise kids having been kind of raised on technology and say like, okay, these are the perils and the pitfalls. Our parents didn't have that, so they were not,
They
I don't
didn't
think,
know anything.
readily available
just-
to.
Gave them the technology and said,
Yeah, here's a Nintendo. Here's a computer.
I mean, they didn't
Yeah.
know the impact of it.
and that's why I think we'll panic because a collective group of our generation is like, yo, it's not the end all be all. Chill out.
Right.
Society, humanity matters, and I think a good enough amount of us will raise our children on that will balance out.
I hope so.
Let's hope so.
Let's hope, yeah.
Because our generation is waiting the longest to have children too,
Yeah.
Which is smart, I think.
because we really recognize yo, this is a really big deal. You don't have a kid at 18 just because, and then you don't go work at Ford for 50 years to raise those kids. You know, we're like, yo, let me figure out my life first. Let me make sure I'm happy. And then raising children on our own happiness that's going to be good.
I think that's the greatest
Ooh,
gift we could give
I have
our
a
kids.
question. Okay, so we know about CRISPR. Do you know about CRISPR?
Oh,
Okay.
gosh.
It's the ability.
CRISPR.
It's the ability to design babies, basically. It's more specifically. More specifically, you're able to genetically edit DNA to edit for
Right.
or
Like
edit
hair,
out.
eye color, things like that.
Right, exactly. What I won't ask you about that, the look, but I would ask both of you if you could genetically, and I don't think this is possible, but
Not
if you could
yet.
genetically
Not yet.
engineer your baby to be a compassionate and empathetic person intentionally, would you do that? Or would you just like take it the chance that they may be a sociopath or something like that?
I will ask a bigger question.
Question with a question.
I'm a one-up you, Pat. Did God design us with the ability to make those decisions, and we are continuing on the evolution of who God created us to be, or are we interrupting God's natural creation?
Well, I will respond to that by saying that I am an atheist. I
Yeah.
don't believe in God.
He does not believe
And
that.
so,
I see. Now it's getting interesting.
so I would say that
So you believe in no higher power?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
believe in the infinite power of the universe to have physics and things that we will never be able to conceptualize as human beings, given our relative position in the universe and our short lifespans. But I think that, dang, what was your question?
Well, if you don't believe in God, then I guess it's irrelevant. But I was gonna say, did God engineer us to be able to become this advanced, and so therefore to, in your example, modify?
Oh, okay. So I would answer that evolutionarily speaking, I think that any advancement in humanity is an evolutionary adaptation.
For sure.
For the future.
For sure.
So regardless of whether it's us, becoming like one colored race that's evolving away from like multicolored racial colors, which race is a made up term, as Sam likes to point out. But I would say that, yeah, any advancement, if it's tied to technology or not tied to technology, that's humanity advancing itself evolutionarily, and that's just the next evolutionary step.
Ruby, do you believe in God?
I do believe in
What do you think?
well, that was going to be my answer, is that I would leave it to God. I don't think I would interfere, honestly. I think that I have faith in like the universe and in God to put something in my life. I have proof of it in my life already, so that's what I would do. I would take my chances.
Majorly.
And just see what's up.
Yeah.
Would you?
I think I would want to have a compassionate, empathetic child.
I think I would trust in my abilities to teach them to be.
Yeah, it's part nature and nurture. So I mean, it's
I don't know how I could
raised.
engineer that, but I don't think I could engineer it scientifically better than I could teach it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even if someone was like, take this blue pill and they'll be the most empathetic human being walking the earth, I still would rather teach them. Because there's something about I don't know.
Would you say I might argue that that's more of a selfish thing in you, saying
of course.
that like
Raising
you
my
need
child.
to prove that you're capable of raising that
Proving
kid.
that I'm capable and having the chance to bond with my child in that way. You know, like I look forward to correcting my child. Yeah, because and it's not going to go this way, but in a perfect world, correcting them will be the things in life they look back on, those moments in which they were correct. If they've never known anything else, from the womb they've been empathetic and never had to reconcile with treating humanity kindly, then it'll be kind of empty. It'll be more. They'll be more like a robot rather than like a real reflective. I'm choosing to do this because of this is where my morals and my ethics stand. I'm empathetic every day because I reconcile with my ethics.
Yeah, and so it's an interesting question because it aligns with, I think that every person has a natural emotional sensibility, and then of course you have to teach them and socialize them in ways that are ethical and things like that. But if you could design it so that you do that and they take to it versus
leaving it up to chance.
The one thing I wish we could design out of society is like murder.
That will never be a thing.
But we can design empathy. We can't design.
No, that was a hypothetical.
This is a hypothetical too.
Okay.
I would say that designing the empathetic might eradicate. Might lead to that.
Ooh, so in that case, would you be for it or against it?
I mean, here's my take. If we're talking about hypothetical kids and how we're raising them, I would just want to bring them into the most loving environment that I could. I think, and I would trust in my ability to create that for them, and then I would trust in God's ability to provide for that.
Sure.
That's
All
what I
right.
would
Well,
say.
this has been a really great conversation, Nico.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you
you
for
for
being
having
here.
me.
Do you want to let our viewers and listeners know where they can find you?
At Nico Giles Media on IG, at Nico Giles Media on Facebook, at Nico Giles on YouTube.
There's a trend
Just
there.
at Nico Giles everywhere.
Yeah. And check out Level 3 Studios,
Yes. Please do.
Level
that.
3 Studios.
Fire Podcast,
It's popping.
here based out of Kansas City. Yeah, thanks again. Special shout out to Nico, of course, and Nicholas Seguda. Check out his show, The Catch. It's going to be coming out soon.
Oh, yeah, that's gonna be great.
And we're the Realennials. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and IG. I'm Pat.
Peace.
I'm Ruby.
See you next time.
Yeah, love you, fam.